What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? The D-backs stay hot as they sweep the Boston Red Sox. What are their chances looking like now of winning the NL West?
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by SupplyHouse. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. I'm Millard Thomas, host of this wonderful podcast. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, MillardThomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we'll be talking about the D-backs staying hot and sweeping the Boston Red Sox, how the rotation should look for the rest of the season and potentially the playoffs. And then we'll update our NL West belief meter, the chances we believe the D-backs have of winning the division. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. All right. Let's get back to the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about that most recent series against the Boston Red Sox because the D-backs complete the sweep against Boston, back-to-back sweeps for Arizona after getting swept by Tampa. What a response by the D-backs. You go out there, you sweep the Miami Marlins. Now you face a Boston Red Sox team who has been really good since June 1st, one of the best records in baseball during that time, fighting for playoff positioning, still in the wild card race, and the D-backs took it to Boston this series. A nice clean sweep for Arizona. And in every game, you basically got to see a different identity of the D-backs. And that's why I believe the D-backs are not just the hottest team in baseball, but maybe the best team in baseball right now. Like, I think it's fair to say that when you look at their record since June 1st, when you look at their offensive stats, when we look at the teams that they've beaten, we just look at their own talent on paper. Like, what is missing from the D-backs resume the last couple months where they shouldn't be proclaimed the best team in baseball, at least for right now, entering the postseason? Why shouldn't they get that moniker? I've been talking on podcasts the last week where if you were an opposing team, if you're the Phillies, the Dodgers, whoever, and you had to power rank the scariest teams that you don't want to face in the postseason, would the D-backs be at the top of like every NL contenders list? If you're the Phillies, is the D-backs not the scariest team you want to face or you don't want to face? Same with the Dodgers, same with the Brewers, the Padres. Like, I think the D-backs for opposing teams are the scariest team that other teams do not want to face. I think this series against the Boston Red Sox was a great microcosm of why, because every game we got to see a different way that the D-backs can kill you. Game one, it was the offensive bludgeoning against the Red Sox. 12-2. D-backs had 16 hits like they were crushing it. Eugenio grand slam, 3 hits from Josh Bell, couple hits from Jake McCarthy. Perdomo had 3 hits. Like, up and down your lineup, everyone was contributing. Everyone was putting in work, and game one showed you that the D-backs can just go out there and out smash you offensively if they need to. Game two showed you that the D-backs don't always need an elite offense. You know what? Sometimes we can just pitch, get a couple of clutch hits, and that's all we need. Game number 2 was the shutdown pitching performance. Zach Gallen, 6 shutout innings from him. Almost flawless bullpen outside of Paul Sewald, but offense does just enough, and the bullpen and the rotation does a great job of shutting down an opposing team's offense. And then in this game number 3, it showed you that the D-backs are never out of a game, no matter what the score is. Down 4 runs to Boston after 4, D-backs, never worried, of course. And as a D-backs fan, never worried because we know about the resiliency of this team. We know this answer back squad makes more comebacks than like any other team in baseball, and they did it once again. As I always say, if the D-backs are down 3 or 4 runs, go on FanDuel, place a little wager down on the D-backs money line to come back in that series because once again, I'm sure it was like plus 200, plus 250, maybe plus 300 for the D-backs to come back in this game. And of course, they did that. And this series once again just showed you the D-backs can kill you in so many different ways. Whether it's game 1 bludgeoning, the game 2 pitching performance, or the game 3, we're never going to back down. Great job by the D-backs this series. Eugenio Suarez really carried the offense. 8 hits, 2 home runs, including a grand slam, and 10 ribbies this series. He was absolutely fantastic. Of course, his numbers since July 1st, really, really strong for Eugenio. He is fourth on the team in WRC plus, really third because ADC Del Castillo's third, and he's barely played. So really could say Eugenio's third in WRC plus since July 1st with a 295 average, with a 349 OBP and a 607 slugging. He has been phenomenal for the D-backs over the last couple months, and he has been so important to what the D-backs want to do. 44 ribbies also leads the team during that time. I do think Eugenio needs to be moved up in the lineup going forward. He needs to be batting at least fifth above Lourdes Gurriel because I do not like seeing Eugenio Suarez bat seventh so much in the lineup. We also got Corbin Carroll. He continues to be productive. I think I was trying to go back and track on Baseball Reference. You guys could double check my work. I think every game where Corbin Carroll has started the whole game, not games where he's come in late in the eighth inning or pinch hit, but games where Corbin Carroll started and finished, I think he has a hit or a walk in every single game since July 6th that he started and finished the game. This guy has been on fire really for 2 months. And in the month of August, he has been even better. July, we started to see Corbin Carroll wake up. He still had a 220 average, but 822 OPS in the month of July. Now in August, even better. 260 average and then 938 OPS. That's what his numbers were entering today's game against the Red Sox. He has been really good over the last couple months and has really tapped into some power. He's been scoring a lot of runs. I think he has like 67 runs in like his last 72 games or something. Like insane amount of runs for Corbin Carroll recently. He's been playing so well. And you could just look at the D-backs record during the stretch of Corbin Carroll playing well. All of a sudden, the D-backs are never losing any games. Geraldo Perdomo, he continues to play well. 5 hits this series, 4 RBIs, 3 runs, and a home run off the pesky pole in that ninth inning of the finale. He has been incredible as well recently for the D-backs. You look at Perdomo's slash line now on the season, 288, 349, 403. Like that's a perfect slash line for Perdomo. If you told me put up like a slash line similar to that over the next 7 years, like I would sign up for that. A 290 hitter, 750 OPS, great defense, elite plate discipline. That could be your shortstop for the next near decade. I would sign up for that personally. Jake McCarthy did his thing as always. I thought Ryne Nelson and Zach Gallen were both nasty the first 2 games of the series. Ryne Nelson continues to dominate. Zach Gallen looked good, one of his better starts this season. Merrill Kelly, he was shaky in the finale, but he did just enough to hold it down, which was perfect as well. And then the bullpen was pretty flawless, except for Paul Sewald, who just sucks in the ninth inning. Justin Martinez gave up a home run as well, but even when he gave up that home run, I was not worried at all. D-backs, great showing by them this series. They showed you all the different ways that they could kill an opposing team. They get the sweep. They get back-to-back sweeps after getting swept by Tampa. And now we'll talk about in segment number 3 how the D-backs do have a chance of winning the NOS. We'll talk about that in segment number 3. But in segment number 2, I want to talk about how the rotation should be set up for the rest of this season. But hey, if you're looking for any supplies, then I suggest SupplyHouse because Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And let's talk about the D-backs rotation and how it should be set up for the rest of the season because the D-backs made an announcement. Jordan Montgomery is going to the bullpen. Ryne Nelson is staying in the rotation. And I'm so glad the D-backs chose to make the right decision here because I think we all agreed this had to be Ryne Nelson over Jordan Montgomery. Ryne Nelson has been so much better than him this season. And again, you look at the numbers since July 1st for Ryne Nelson. He has been the best D-back starter during that time. A 2.76 ERA for Ryne Nelson since July 1st. He has been cooking. Jordan Montgomery, he has not been cooking this season. It's been a struggle. Whatever Jordan Montgomery has cooked, the the patrons, I couldn't think of people that go to restaurants and eat food. Whatever Jordan Montgomery has cooked, the customers, the patrons, they have gone food poisoning this season. So good decision by the D-backs to go with Ryne Nelson over Jordan Montgomery. Nelson just looks way more fresh, looks way more spry out there. He is the command and the location right now for Ryne Nelson, I mean, I think is the most impressive thing. Like the way he's dotting up the corner of the strike zone right now and like some of the edges, like this Ryne Nelson, the version we're seeing right now, he's still very fastball dependent, but the way he's locating his fastball right now is extremely scary. His velo is up from last year. Same with his cutter. Like maybe that's the biggest jump that we've seen from his numbers this year. Like the fastball, it's at 95 this season. It was at like 94 and a half last season. So he's gained like a half mile tick on that. That's not like a huge jump. The biggest jump is really on that cutter, which is not really an effective pitch. Like you look at the numbers this season, the cutter, the numbers aren't looking good for the cutter. 312 average allowed, 477 slugging, but the velo has raised a lot on the cutter. 91 miles per hour this season, 85.6 miles per hour last season. It's that fastball they like to throw the most. It's been really good this season. Only a 248 average allowed this season on his fastball, and that has led to his success this year because it's the pitch he throws the most. Last year, 308 average allowed, 553 slugging allowed on his fastball. This season, 248 and a 417 slugging. And that's why we've seen such a big improvement in Ryne Nelson this season. And that's why he's winning this job over Jordan Montgomery right now. Meanwhile, Monty, he could really make the case for Monty that he hasn't even been better than Madison Bumgarner. Mad Bum his first year, 6.48 ERA. Monty's first season right now, 6.44 ERA. But Monty, that's 19 starts. Mad Bum his first season only made 9 starts for that 6.48 ERA. And then in his second season, he made 26 starts and had a 4.67 ERA. So if you look at the first 19 starts for both of these guys, Monty definitely has the worst ERA. And Mad Bum, despite him being terrible, Monty still gives up more hits per nine than the first 3 seasons that Mad Bum had with the Arizona Diamondbacks. You look at the strikeout numbers, Mad Bum was still better in terms of a K rate than Monty as well. So a lot of the numbers that you see right now for Monty, whip, K rate, hits per nine, ERA, like he's statistically worse than Jordan Montgomery, statistically worse than Madison Bumgarner, which is crazy to say because we know how bad the Mad Bum experience was. From day one, we were disappointed and frustrated with Mad Bum. I feel like there's not the same level of vitriol toward Monty because the D-backs overall as a team have been able to still play elite baseball despite Monty being bad, and the fact the D-backs rotation is as deep as ever. Because when the D-backs signed Mad Bum, you had Gallen in the building, but he only had one really good year of success with Arizona. He was coming over from the trade. Like we hadn't had an established track record of him. Merrill Kelly, I wasn't even in on at that point. Like I thought Merrill Kelly would just like a mid pitcher. I was like, yeah, he's like a number 4, number 5 starter. Didn't really think much of him. Then the rest of your rotation really wasn't anything at all. It was like the Alex Youngs and the Taylor Clark. So when we signed Mad Bum at the time, the team wasn't good and the rotation wasn't good. So I think that's why we have more vitriol for Mad Bum than we do Monty, despite Monty being worse. But now that he's going to the bullpen, great situation for him. He could be the third lefty reliever. He could be the go-to long reliever for the pen. Perfect. Now Nelson gets to be the number 5 starter. I think that's perfect as well. But my question is, does Nelly have a chance? Are these next few weeks going to be an audition for the postseason rotation? Because I want to know if Nelly has a chance to make it into that playoff rotation. Because obviously, in a regular season, you have 5 guys, but in the playoffs, you really only need 4 dudes. It's like how in basketball, you see their rotations shrink as well, right? You only go to like 7 or 8 guys in a NBA playoff setting. In a baseball setting, you're only using your top 4 starters. You're not even going to that number 5 guy in a playoff rotation. So for Ryne Nelson, who is clearly probably on the outside looking in, despite his elite numbers since July, Gallen established number 1 for the D-backs. Merrill Kelly established number 2 for the D-backs. Brandon Pfaadt, big game rookie pitcher last year. Then Erod, I mean, he's the second highest paid player on the D-backs on a 4-year contract, making $20 million a year. Like that on paper is going to be the top 4 guys in your playoff rotation. But with the way Nelly has pitching, with the way Nelly has been pitching the last couple months, I just want to know if the door is open for Nelly to steal a spot from someone because he's been the best starter for the D-backs the last 7 weeks of the season. And if he gives the D-backs the best opportunity, if he continues his play through the rest of the regular season, and you're like, man, this guy has been the best D-back starter for 2.5, 3 months now, should he be given an opportunity to be in the playoff rotation? Because look, Gallen was elite against Boston this past weekend. 6 shutout innings. That curveball was nasty. He was getting strikeouts, but he still dealt with some fastball command issues. The velo's there for Gallen, but the fastball command has been a little bit of a problem. He did give up a few walks in that game. And, since the second half of last season, he hasn't been elite Zach Gallen. I still have a lot of confidence in him, but do I have the confidence in Gallen that I used to have? Probably not. I don't know if I feel like he's that shutdown number 1 starter like I used to feel with Zach Gallen. And entering the playoffs, if he has a few more mixed result starts, like, yeah, that's a little bit of a question mark for me entering the postseason. He's still be in the postseason rotation, no doubt. I don't think his job is on the line, but maybe it should be a little bit of a question mark. Merrill Kelly, I thought he did a good job of keeping the game close in the finale, but back-to-back starts where he ran into some trouble, giving up the long ball a little bit, still trying to work his way back to full health as well. Like if we continue to see Merrill Kelly with mixed results, does that maybe make it a little bit of a question? Now I do have 100% faith in Merrill Kelly in a postseason setting, but just throwing out the question, a Brandon Pfaadt, is he a guy that's maybe hitting a little bit of a wall right now? Never pitched this many innings in a season. Is he going to be fine pitching a full regular season and then a full playoff slate as well? Erod is a guy with questionable health throughout his career as well, and he's barely pitched this season. Like, I think those 4 will be in the playoff rotation over Nelly. But if Nelly does continue to dominate for the rest of this regular season, I just want to know if he should be given a look and an opportunity. Like, why shouldn't Nelly potentially start game 1 of like the wild card series. Maybe you save your other four guys for the divisional, the championship series. But if you go off in the wild card round, maybe you do start a Nelly in that situation. I'm just throwing it out there. I know it sounds crazy to say out loud when you think of the journey that we've been on with Ryne Nelson, but he's been so good the last few weeks of the season, and the other guys have been a little bit more up and down. I just want to make sure we look at all our options and pick the best guys. I think with the way Ryne Nelson has pitched this season, he should be at least given an opportunity to audition for a playoff spot for the rest of 2024. Now we'll talk about the D-backs belief meter and their chances of winning the NL West in segment number 3. But hey, if you want to place a little wager down on the D-backs winning the NL West, then the best place to do that, of course, is going to be FanDuel Sportsbook, because you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And of course, you can still do my favorite thing on FanDuel, which is the same game parlay. Give me give me Jake McCarthy over on total bases. Give me an Adrian Del Castillo RBI, and give me the D-backs money line. When that 3-leg hits, it brings a big smile to my face. If you want a big smile on your face, just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about the belief meter for the D-backs to potentially win the NL West, because we used to do our Sunday podcast and do like a little panic meter back when the D-backs were like below 500, right? Pre All-Star break, when they were just getting to 500. It's like, what's our actual belief in this D-backs team? Getting hot and securing a wild card spot, securing a place in the wild card race. Like, do you remember? Like, that was right before the All-Star break. We were doing the panic meters. D-backs were just barely around 500, maybe a game above, maybe a couple of games below 500. We still didn't know which way the season was going to go. And basically, since then, the D-backs have been the best team in Major League Baseball, absolutely on a tear, and have been taking the game over by storm. And so now I want to ask, are they hot enough to catch the Dodgers in the NL West? I mean, after back-to-back sweeps, I mean, they are looking good in the standings. The Dodgers are currently playing right now. Same with the San Diego Padres. I'm recording this podcast before those two games end. Currently 0-0 in both of those games. So we are praying for a Dodgers and Padres loss today. D-backs have won 24 of their last 27 games. So they are hot. They are on fire. And they are setting themselves up to potentially win the NL West. And if the Dodgers lose today, being only 2 games back of them in the division, I believe, let me just double check that real quick, that they will be 2 games back of them in the division if the Dodgers lose. Yes. And so if that happens, I think the meter right now should be at a 6. I still think the Dodgers are the favorites to win it, but the door is definitely there for the D-backs to potentially win the NL West, being 2 games back, and because the next 2 series, really great opportunity for the D-backs to cause a ruckus in the National League standings, because next up for the D-backs, you got the New York Mets, who are a couple games back in the wild card race of the Atlanta Braves. That's a team that's going to come out with a fire in their belly right there. You have a lot to play for, a lot to prove. That's still, I think, the most expensive team in baseball. And so they definitely want to make it to the postseason. The Braves have been very vulnerable this year, dealing with injuries. The lineup has been disappointing. This is going to be a series where if you're the New York Mets, you take 2 out of 3 from the D-backs. You not only move up in the wild card race, potentially get really close to that 3rd wild card spot, but then I think you'd be like the only National League team that would also own the tiebreaker over the D-backs as well. So a very tantalizing series for the Mets to get back in the standings, own the tiebreaker over the D-backs, and that will increase some confidence for your ball club if you go into Chase Field and beat the hottest team in baseball. If you're the D-backs, also a great opportunity to rip the hearts out of Mets fans. You could sweep them, basically end their misery for the postseason race. Just say, hey, wrap it up. Get ready for the draft. Get ready for the offseason. It's okay. D-backs going to the playoffs. Maybe you can next year. Let's start shedding that payroll because this team is not it. The Mets in the month of August are a 500 team. If they beat, I believe they're playing the Padres. If they beat the Padres, they'll be one game above 500 entering the series against the D-backs. Meanwhile, the D-backs are the hottest team in baseball. So the Mets, at least on paper, do not scary, but this is also one of those teams I feel like just plays the D-backs well. Does not matter who's on the roster for the Mets. I feel like they just play Arizona well. With a guy like Francisco Lindor right now, he's been on fire. He is a guy the D-backs do have to watch out for. He's got over a 300 average and like a 950 OPS in the second half of the major league season. He is the scariest guy in the lineup. We have to watch out for him. This could be potentially a trap series because I don't fear this team with the talent that they have on paper. But again, I feel like this squad always plays the D backs well. So potentially trap series, just do your job and take 2 out of 3 from New York because right after that, you got potentially your most important series of the year against the LA Dodgers, a 4-game set entering September. I'm going to try and be at every game this next week against the Mets and Dodgers. I got a homie that now works for the D-backs. He hooks it up for me. And so I will be going to potentially every game this week. And now that you get to face the LA Dodgers, that's why you got to put this meter at a 6 because even though I feel like the Dodgers are more likely to win the division, the opportunity is going to be there for you next weekend. 4-game set, you take 3 out of 4 from the Dodgers after taking 2 out of 3 from the Mets, and you might be having a conversation next Sunday with a game left in the series against the Dodgers and say, you know what? D-backs are a game back of LA in the division. And if they win Monday night, they will move into first place in the NL West. That could be our conversation next Sunday night on this podcast. You look at the pitching matchups of the next week. You're never going to be scared now if you're the D-backs. Now that Monty's in the bullpen, it's either going to be Gallen, Kelly, Nelson, Erod, Fott. Like every single day, you're going to feel good about the D-backs' chances to win the game just based off the pitching matchup. Plus, the offense the D-backs have. I think the D-backs right now are better than the Dodgers, despite me still thinking the Dodgers are going to win the division. I think right now the D-backs are better than the Dodgers, which sets them up really well for the next series. So this is going to be a very exciting week of D-backs baseball. A lot of big implications for the next 2 series. And I'm confident that the D-backs are going to come out swinging and we're going to have a good, positive conversation about the D-backs being set up to win the NL West on next week's podcast. And so that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.